We hear the word agent tossed around a lot these days in college football, and there are such agents who work in the PR space. That's public relations. Deondre Williams should invest in one of those guys. Roman Tomashoff of On Huskies is here to discuss. Roman, for those who haven't seen the press conference, I'll provide a link in the description below for those who want to easily check it out. But understandably, he was asked about, signing with Washington, announcing he's coming back, announcing he's leaving, getting sued, then coming back to Washington. He's handling this poorly, right?
It's not great. Like that's the biggest thing with this is Demond has always been a very by the book media trained. Like I'm not going to give you a whole lot. I don't think that is the best way to go about this situation personally. I also think that this is a very, I don't want to say odd situation because it's so far beyond that, but this is something where like, I feel that there is already a fracture in terms of his relationship with the fan base. And I truly don't know what is going to make it better at this point in time. I don't think the answers that he gave were tremendous by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also just kind of a little confused by this whole situation in terms of how it's going to be approached moving forward, because this question isn't going to go away.
No. And that's what I wonder is, we're in early February. This is a question. When does spring practice officially start for the Huskies?
Middle, end of March, somewhere around
end of March. There are going to be press conferences after those, or media scrums, if you want to call them, for Jedd Fisch. He's going to be asked about how's he settling in? How are the guys responding to him? And then when the spring game happens, Demond is going to have to step up to a microphone after practice sometimes. He might it's not going away. And I think the biggest misstep so far has been the attitude or messaging towards the fans, because the messaging off the top was, I want to be somewhere else. Oh, I'm going to get sued and I would lose. Well, I'm going to be here then. That's not great. That's not great from the messaging standpoint. And then the response to that was again an equivalent of a coach speak answer in this press conference when he was asked, hey, can you speak from the heart about what it means to be here at Washington? And look, you and I are more comfortable public speaking than, 99% of this country, because it's one of the top listed fears consistently when you look at public opinion polls. I get that talking is hard. I just think if I were a Washington fan and I were watching my quarterback who just put me through this whole ordeal, if I watched him step up to the microphone and say something that is flat, emotionless, and just trying to give any answer to the question, I wouldn't feel very good about that.
No, I think that's completely fair. And that's such a big part of this too, where it's going to continue to be uncomfortable, where I don't think we're ever going to get an answer, right? Like one of the questions I was asked in the press conference was, hey, was it LSU that tried to take you away? And
no comment.
Obviously he's not going to comment on that, right? Like we're not going to start some kind of issue around all of college football with whatever that answer is going to be. And like, even when Jedd Fisch talked about this the first time he spoke, or at least in a press conference situation, he also did a radio interview about it in the middle of January, because he's talked about being blindsided by all this. I truly don't know what else can be said at this point, especially from like a coaching staff's perspective of like, hey, yeah, because there's going to be a point where you're going to keep talking about it. And if you, I don't want to say get too honest with it, but if you do divulge a little bit too much, maybe that sows divide in your locker room. Maybe that just causes a rift in some way that is extremely, more so, let's say, detrimental to the team than what this situation already like certainly caused in some way, shape, or form. And I think that as you continue to just like move forward, I don't think the ball is any longer in the court of Jedd Fisch and the University of Washington. It is in the court of Deondre Williams and his agent and the people close to him to try to find a way to continue to make this right.
I'm with you. The question will keep coming up, and he'll probably try to keep giving non-answers, but I don't know that that's the right thing. You know, the most, I think, honest he got in that answer is when he said, I'm 19 years old, you know, I got good advice, I got bad advice. But again, the presentation and delivery of it matters.
Sure.
Or else I think to Washington fans, it just comes off as another pre-prepared statement that doesn't have any feeling behind it. I just haven't seen any indication since all this happened that he feels he genuinely made a mistake. He gives off the vibe to me as a guy who did want to leave and is being forced into this position. And I don't think that's a great dynamic for fans to have to root for.
I do think that's fair. And I'm not trying to disagree with your point. I just want to add that demeanor and everything that the way that he spoke in that entire interview has been the exact same since he got to Washington. After going for 400 against Rutgers, same demeanor. After struggling against... But
that's the problem, is this
this
is an emotional situation, and he's bringing a business mentality to it.
No, I agree, and that's where I'm going with this. It's the demeanor has not changed in any way, shape, or form, and that in and of itself is going to cause a bigger issue with all of this as you continue to move forward, because as you said, it is a bit of a disservice to the fans, because there are going to be several more opportunities to continue to speak about this from the heart and say, yeah, I know I made a mistake. This was a problem. This is what I've done maybe behind the scenes to try to make it right. This is what I've done publicly to try to make it right, because the message that Jedd Fisch continued to push when he talked about this earlier was, well, he was only really away from the team for 72 hours. So, and it's one of those things where, like it wasn't
as
necessarily
if that matters.
That's an interesting part of all this, right?
Would it be different if it was only 48 hours or 52 hours? What's the line of demarcation on that? Okay.
It's just one of those things where, it's not like he was away for several weeks and the team was moving on without him and exploring so many other options at quarterback or whatever that message might be. It's all so confusing from this. And I think that this can just continue to be handled so much better as this continues to go on, because again, we keep coming back to the same point of the question is going to continue to be asked. And I think that there also needs to be some acknowledgement of the timing of all this. And it's been said before that, it was just bad timing to take place during the celebration of life for Mia Hammett, the women's soccer player who passed away last season during a battle with kidney cancer. And that is part that still wasn't necessarily publicly addressed by Demond. I know Jedd Fisch has talked about, hey, yeah, we understand this, and Demond is going to, and again, this was mid-January, so it sounds like these conversations have taken place where he spoke with Mia's parents, and Demond spoke to the women's soccer team, and they've continued to chalk it up as bad timing, but that is also something that I think Demond will have to publicly address with all of this as well.
Does this get forgotten at all by Washington fans the first time Williams goes for 380 yards and 4 total touchdowns in a 21-point win?
The fan base is so big that I don't think there's ever going to be one answer. Like I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out, but it's the same way I feel about the locker room that I do about the fan base. There are going to be people who, no matter what happens, they are not going to accept him for that. There are going to be people who, you see that and it's, I feel like this guy can get us college football playoff. There's going to be that side of that as well. And I feel like we're going to see that from the locker room, from the fan base, from everybody, because this is just such a complex and unfortunate and frustrating situation from so many different angles.
Is there a sense at all that it's being made a bigger deal of amongst fans and media types than inside the locker room itself?
I feel like that's always going to be a message to try to keep things in-house and try to keep things somewhat under control. But I think that with how this just sent shockwaves throughout the world of college football, because obviously we've seen the whole Darian Mensah thing transpire since then in a very similar situation. This changed college football. It did. And I don't think that anybody would be wrong for blowing this up and making it a big deal, because in so many different ways, until there are stricter regulations handed down about NIL and contracts and whatever else from the NCAA, This is going to be an example that people point to, for better or for worse, for a lot of different cases that we will see in the future.
Do you think this ever feels like a story that was, it was just something we talked about in spring? Like, can Deondre Williams, from a brand standpoint and his reputation amongst the fan base, can he get past this?
I really don't know. I truly don't, because, like, think about it, Spencer. Let's say Washington does make this big, miraculous run to the college football playoff. Deondre Williams is a Heisman finalist and does all these things that Jedd Fisch has been talking him up to do since his freshman year. That's still going to get asked at a media day or at this, or, oh, hey, you wanted to leave Washington, but you came back and now you're doing this. Talk a little bit about that journey. Like, that's something that probably is not going to go away.
No, I can't see how it will. Maybe we'll have a weekly Deondre Williams emotional check-in segment here on Locked On College Football with Roman Tomashoff of Locked On Huskies. Great, as always. Penn State's schedule, I tell you what, we're going to end on a more chipper note on today's show because it's a Friday. You can take some good news into the weekend. Penn State is going to win more games this year than they did last year.